Hello everyone, hopefully an OK editor, 357 here. And for today's Don't Stop December video, I am doing a spoiler-free review of the new Sword Art Online film that just released. Sword Art Online Progressive, Aria of a Starless Night. I had the opportunity to see the movie today, and by today I mean when I'm typing up the script. So if this review feels a little rantish or all over the place, it's just because I'm still coming down from the high of seeing this movie and trying to get all my thoughts in order. All that being said, let's begin. So I'm just going to come right out and say it, I loved this movie. I've always been a fan of Sword Art Online, since the first time I've watched it, and as a fan, I'll admit the series has many flaws. I don't think the series deserves the hate it gets, but I do think there was a lot of missed potential and just bad character writing, especially in the Aincrad arc, and that's where the Progressive series comes in. A retelling of the Aincrad arc, but a more fleshed out one, where we get to see the 4x4 journey of Kirito and Asuna throughout Sword Art Online and also get to watch their relationship progress, for lack of a better word. Someone please kill me for that pun! At a more natural and satisfying pace. I love the SAO Progressive books so much. I haven't read the most recent one just because I haven't had a lot of free time recently, but they felt basically like what Sword Art Online should have been from the start. So when I heard that there would be a Progressive film, I was very excited. And while I do think overall Progressive would benefit from being a full-fledged anime series, as opposed to a series of films, the first movie is an excellent adaptation of the story material from the Progressive books it covers. One thing I was surprised by in this film was the changes it made to the story from the original Progressive story, specifically the addition of the new character Mito. Mito is Asuna's friend from the real world who quickly teaches Asuna the ins and outs of Sword Art Online once it's revealed that if you die in Sword Art Online, you die in real life. I really like this new character. First of all, her teaching Asuna lets viewers see Asuna naturally build up her skills to become the amazing fighter we know her to be by the time of the first boss fight, as opposed to how it goes in the original series where Kirito just happens to meet her out of nowhere, and then we see her almost instantly be a great fighter in the first boss fight. Since it's known that Asuna wasn't super into video games despite logging into SAO, it feels much more natural to see her stumble and fail at the beginning, but slowly build her skills to become the awesome fighter that we all know and love, as opposed to automatically being great like she is in the original series. Aside from serving the purpose of being Asuna's mentor, I also just liked Mito as a character as well. Her relationship with Asuna was endearing, and I gotta give props to, and I apologize now if I'm butchering this name, Reki Kawahara. He's really grown as a writer since the start of the Sword Art Online series. I could have sworn I knew exactly what direction Mito's role in the story was heading in, but was pleasantly surprised with what Reki Kawahara decided to do with her character. I'm obviously not going to say what happens with her in the story, but it's genuinely very surprising and the first time in a long time that Sword Art Online has actually thrown me for a loop. And Mito's not the only one with great characterization. Unlike the books, which if I remember correctly has the perspective switch between Kirito and Asuna at different times, the movie is told completely from Asuna's perspective, which I think works to the film's advantage. We already know pretty much everything there is to know about Kirito, so letting us see the events from Asuna's perspective was a great choice. First, we get to see what her life was like before logging into Sword Art Online, which lets you get attached to her more as a character, and appreciate seeing how she reacts to her new virtual reality when she becomes trapped in the game. I really don't want to get into her character arc in this movie. I think it's best experienced knowing as little as possible, but let me just say, she has so much more depth and charm to her character in this 97-minute film than she does in the majority of the original Aincrad arc. In the original Aincrad arc, despite being an important character, and one I am still very attached to despite what I'm about to say, she doesn't have much depth or character development on her side. We just kind of see her become this important and renowned player within Sword Art Online without the journey of how she got there. Then she doesn't serve much of a purpose in the story despite being Kirito's love interest. Now don't get me wrong, I still love Asuna from the original series. She's an amazing fighter and equal to Kirito. And despite the rushed nature of their romance, I found their relationship to be very endearing and they're still one of my favorite anime couples. That being said, aside from the scene where she breaks down crying saying Kirito should stay away from her because he's in danger when he gets involved with her, which still pulls on my heartstrings to this day, she's just kind of there to be the romantic partner to Kirito and also being a dope fighter. And that's fine for later in the story, but I want to see how she's an interesting character on her own right. And then I'd like to see later on how she becomes one of the most renowned figures in SAO, and eventual romantic partner to Kirito. And thankfully this film does that. Her character is really well written and I loved her character arc that resulted in such a satisfying final scene to the movie. I am very much looking forward to see her continue to grow as a character, as a fighter, and how her relationship with Kirito progresses over time. Speaking of Kirito, naturally Kirito's in this movie, just not as the protagonist. And while he is still overpowered, which I think makes sense considering he's a beta tester, who knows the ins and outs of SAO better than most people in the game, he is a much more endearing character in this movie than the original Aincrad arc. He doesn't feel like a blank slate. Despite being overpowered like I mentioned, I still get the sense he has a lot to learn, both as a player and a person going forward. And also, he's a lot more fun to watch this time around. Unlike in the original where he just seems so bland or grim most of the time, the Kirito in this movie acts like a 14-year-old boy would when put in the situation he's in the movie. He gets flustered in awkward situations, he makes mistakes, he's much more energetic in his interactions with all the characters while also still being serious when the story calls for it. He's not like the deepest character ever made, but I think he is a well-written teenage boy character thrust into this beautiful virtual reality world with a deadly twist. I will say my favorite moments with him were his interactions with Asuna. Their relationship is just so fun to watch. The way they meet feels more personal and fitting for the story of the deadly game that is SAO, and their interactions are really engaging since Asuna is a much more different and much more layered character this time around. Every interaction they have feels like it carries emotional weight and significance in regards to having them form a long-term relationship, and the progress they make in their relationship just feels so earned by the end of the film, thanks to both of them being much more engaging characters with more interesting interactions compared to their characterization and interactions in the original Aincrad arc. Last thing I will say about Kirito is thanks to him being a much more interesting and likable character this time around, when it comes time for a certain event in the story to happen, and I won't say what it is, but it's something that happens in the original Aincrad arc too, it just feels so much more impactful and an earned character progression. Like I said, this is due to him being a much more well-written character, but also the changed story content from the progressive books. I don't want to get into specifics because this is a spoiler-free review, but the things added or changed to the progressive story to the film serve the narrative wonderfully. I was skeptical about the new character and how she would affect the overall story of progressive, but this film really nailed the story. It took everything that worked from the progressive books and both expanded upon and improved the story. And the progressive books was already a very improved version of Sword Art Online, so the end result is a genuinely great story and introduction to the world of Sword Art Online. Moving on to the presentation, I feel like anyone who has seen the trailer or the animation quality in, say, the Ordinal Scale movie already knows what to expect. The animation is amazing. The upgraded animation that I'm assuming is thanks to being on a movie budget just does such a great job of bringing the world of Aincrad to life with bright colors that fit the vast and beautiful setting of Aincrad perfectly. The fight scenes are exhilarating to watch with great choreography and dynamic camera work that makes you feel the tension of being in a life or death video game battle. And the character designs and animations all look great. Overall, this movie is a visual feast. It just immerses you in the world of Sword Art Online so much better than the original Aincrad arc. Which I'm not trying to needlessly knock down, it makes sense that the very first season wouldn't have as good animation, but everything just looks so amazing in this movie that it's hard not to compare them. Also, the overall presentation and tone set throughout the film just feels so much more on point too. The scene where Kayaba appears and tells everyone about the deadly nature of SAO just feels so much more ominous and genuinely creepy when he first appears. The terrifying nature of a game that kills you in real life when you die feels fully present in how certain scenes are directed, and especially in one scene which was just so brutal, and exactly the type of thing the original Aincrad arc was missing. Up until the first boss fight in the original Aincrad arc, we don't really see anyone die, so we don't get the same sense of danger that viewers get when it's time for the first boss fight in the movie. It just feels like a boss raid that we're told that you can die during, but we don't see any actual character deaths until the middle of the fight, and only then does the situation seem very real, despite being told that many players have already died beforehand. But for the first boss fight, there should be tension and genuine fear as players are about to make the first major stride towards clearing Sword Art Online, but a deadly one that could cost them their lives. This isn't felt as strongly for the lead up to the first boss fight in the original Aincrad arc, because there isn't much setup that cements Sword Art Online as the terrifying and deadly game that it is. This new film thrives on showing more of Sword Art Online and how, yes, beautiful and exciting the game aspect of it can be, especially with how huge the world is, but also how terrifying and fatal it can be. Doing this makes the lead up to the first boss fight the tense experience it should be. You really feel like these characters' lives could be in danger, and it makes the actual boss fight so much more exciting, but also nerve-wracking, which is not how it felt in the original Aincrad arc. All that was to say, this film really does a great job of setting up an exciting, but also really scary atmosphere throughout the film. Characters never feel safe thanks to certain scenes, how they were directed, and overall just the direction of the story as a whole. Going back to the animation because I realize I kind of got off topic, Even the small things like the teleportation effect or how certain rooms materialize upon entering them just look so genuinely beautiful and really make you feel like you're watching the inside of a virtual reality world. This amazing animation and attention to detail to make everything feel as game-like as possible, paired with the amazing atmosphere that fills viewers with equal parts excitement at the beautiful world of Aincrad, but also dread at the possibility of our characters dying brutal deaths, just makes for an amazing experience, and it's how I wish the original Sword Art Online felt while I was watching it. I will talk about the soundtrack now, but I'm really not great when it comes to talking about music, but allow me to say the soundtrack was amazing. Sword Art Online has always had a stellar soundtrack throughout its entire run, and this movie is no exception. It has a great variety of tracks from laid-back and catchy tunes to explore Aincrad's more happy, not deadly side, intense tracks to match some of its more nail-biting moments, softer emotional tracks to match the emotion-heavy scenes, and of course, epic and exciting tracks to match the amazing fight scenes perfectly. It's got a great variety. It's one of the few anime films where I paid close attention to the background music in every scene, because they really are so great and beautiful for their own different reasons. And the theme song of the film, Yuki, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, by Lisa is amazing, but that's no surprise. Her voice is great and her music has always been top tier. I especially like how the lyrics really match Asuna's journey throughout the film. I was kind of hoping Crossing Fields would play at some point just for nostalgia's sake, and because it's a great song, but we still have future progressive films where that can happen. Alright, I think that's all my thoughts on the movie. Simply put, I think it was a great first part to a much-needed retelling of the first Sword Art Online story arc. The characters are both so much more interesting and well-written. The setting of Sword Art Online feels like it's finally being realized to its full potential, with this film's beautiful animation, atmosphere, and tone set throughout the story, and the life and death stakes feel so much more present during this film's fantastic fight scenes. I was a little skeptical of Progressive being adapted into a film rather than a full-fledged series, and also the story changes, but Aria of a Starless Night really took everything amazing from the Progressive books, and made the story they covered from the books even better with these changes. So keep at it, I guess. I am genuinely so excited for the next Sword Art Online Progressive film to come out next year, and I hope it continues to be adapted, whether that be in an anime series or a film, because watching the continued journey of Asuna and Kirito throughout Sword Art Online, and getting the chance to see their relationship progress more naturally over time just sounds so amazing. I want to see them both grow as characters, as fighters, and I would love to see their romance come to fruition over time in this new progressive storyline. I haven't been this excited about something Sword Art Online related in a long time, and I really am grateful to the movie and everyone who made it for making such a great film. I've always loved SAO despite its flaws, but I genuinely think this film is a great starting point to the series, and how I would actually recommend people to start the story of Sword Art Online, even though, because this is an ongoing series, they'd either have to switch to the anime series, or just wait for the next film, but you get what I'm trying to say. I really hope this new movie brings in a lot of new SAO fans, whether that be people who have never heard of the series before, or people who have but because of the flaws of the original never gave it a shot. So all that being said, I would rate Sword Art Online Progressive Aria of a Starless Night a 9 out of 10. Reiki Kawahara has definitely improved as a writer since the start of SAO, and I look forward to seeing this progressive anime adaptation continue for hopefully a long time to come. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Sorry if this review was a little all over the place. I was still gathering my thoughts on the film while typing the script, but I'm still very happy with the content and I had a lot of fun going over my thoughts on this movie. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and a share, and if you've seen Sword Art Online Progressive Aria of a Starless Night, what did you think of the movie? Did you agree with my score? I love talking about anime, and with how much I love this new Sword Art Online film, I would love to talk about it in the comments with everyone. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to maybe see more content from me, please consider subscribing and checking out my other videos as well. I'm in the middle of Don't Stop December, which is a challenge where I try to upload one video for every day of the month of December, so I'm hoping to make a lot more cool stuff before the month is over. Thank you again to everyone watching, and see you guys in the next video, which will be tomorrow.